You're now listening to the Something Good Podcast Network. Please press any key to continue.
You don't know about the other side of the pyramid? The fifth side? It's called the floor, you dumbass. I just want to make sure he realizes there is a fifth side to the pyramid.
And once you open your fucking mind of undefeated goddamn fairness.
I know all of them, and I believe none of them, which makes me an expert. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Something Good For You Network. This is Chris with
Quinn.
We are coming back with you. We still don't have a title yet for our for our show, our cryptid conspiracy cult show.
We'll just call it
with Chris and Quinn.
Work in progress.
Yep, Captain Chris and Quinn Medicine Man. But today we will be going into the Wendigo, one of the more Americanized cryptids that I love. We did do Bigfoot and Loch Ness already, but yeah, let's just get into it. The Wendigo is a Native American cryptid, mainly. This is for North America, unlike our Bigfoot, which stretched across the world. Also known as the Skinwalker.
Yeah.
As I called it to Alex, a Native American Banshee Aryan skinhead.
Just Edward Norton, like 15 feet tall, roaming the woods.
Put your mouth on the curb. Oh, God, it just got really uncomfortable.
He's just curb stomping everybody.
So I'll let Quinn hit it off. Tell us some information about the Wendigo.
Well, it kind of started off, I mean, you're not wrong by saying it is a skinwalker, because from what I've read, essentially east of Appalachia, the Algonquin culture, which is stretching from New England down to, I'd say, right about Southern Virginia.
Yeah.
A lot of that area, that's where the Wendigo would be found throughout all of Appalachia, going up the mountain ranges. Now, as you move west and you start getting into tribes like the Navajo, the Cree, things of that nature. Yeah, the Blackfoot as well. That's where you start running into what's called skinwalkers. Mm-hmm. They have their own name for it. I can't think of the name of it right now. I think I actually have it written down
here. Yeah,
so
I was looking at... So, because the United States was very good at wiping out the Native Americans, we use broad terms when describing which tribes. I did read that across some North Carolina in the Appalachian Mountains, going deep into South Carolina where the Appalachians end, the Cherokee-based tribes, the Iroquois and stuff like that, the Lumpy Indians, which are native to North Carolina, also had a version of their Wendigo. Going up to Canada and the First Nations, oddly enough, the First Nations don't... Well, Canada doesn't recognize individual tribes. It's kind of lump them all together. Way to go, Canada.
They're like one rung above how trashy Australia is.
Yeah, it's like all of Quebec, a French-speaking whole state under the Queen of England. So they have their own fucking little problems.
Things that make you go, huh?
Hell, fun fact, Quebec tried to become their own country not long ago.
Are you serious?
Yes, they try every year. They're like Texas of Canada.
I've heard it. I heard that about them. Like,
Quebec's.
Yeah, it's the same thing with Montreal. Very similar too in that aspect.
Yeah, and going into like the whole Native American part of it, as you stretch from just like any like religion or any like folk creature, this is the only one that is tied to basically a mythos or religion.
Yes.
We get so in India, going back to what we said during the Bigfoot episode, was India's version of the Yeti is part of a religious aspect for Shangri-La.
As a guardian of it.
As a guardian, kind of. And, Russia and their aspect of the Bigfoot is more on the scientific. However, more of the tribes of the Ural Mountains and everything have version of the Yeti or Bigfoot, which is basically to them the same thing. A pre-man type creature that is to be left alone.
Yeah, otherwise you'll fucking die.
Yeah. And while I was doing some research on the Canada aspect of the Wendigo, which I didn't have a lot of information on at the time, so the Native Americans, from what I understand, believe that a Wendigo can, in a way, possess a human being and make them do crimes.
In a way.
or moral boundaries.
Well, a lot of it too kind of goes down to the concept of how it's a metaphor for greediness, lust, gluttony, things of that nature. It's kind of like you can draw parallels to some of the Greek tragedies where it's not necessarily a true story that happened, but it's told in such a fashion that it seems true, but there's really an underlying and more subtle meaning to it.
Most of the people I've seen, the people with degrees that talk about this Wendigo, it seems like it's a topa, basically for sin.
Yes.
What we would call sin in the Western world, and I see that kind of like a really cool.
Sound like the Wendigo is coming up right there.
Yeah, I got him. Drink some Dr. Pepper. Shut the fuck up. But I got him. But no, it seemed like overseas in Europe, when they acknowledge sin, as or like you said, the Greek tragedies, Roman and Greek and Macedonians, they all have tales of worry and want of these ethical boundaries.
Oh yeah, where it's like
don't drink too much, don't fuck too much, don't eat too much.
Take everything in stride, but don't go too far.
Yeah, have a good time.
Don't have too good of a time.
Be more of a Hank Hill, not a Buck Strickland.
Yeah, for real.
I'm addicted to the good times, Hank.
Hey, we're here for a good time, not a long time.
It's kind of fascinating to me that they were able to create, and I say create very loosely because it is a cryptid. It is part of their mythos. They were able to create something as a topa or a tableau, basically, of what a personification of sin, of evil, which I think is a nice parallel to the Abrahamic religions with Satan or angels, and as we see it, a sign of good and bad, kind of like a line drawn in the sand of the black and white. What's called a Terminator, actually, of white and black.
Oh wow,
that's what that's called. Like. I can go deeply heavy into it, but
no, you're fine. You're fine. I was interested,
but I was interested to learn that even in up to the 18 to 1900s in Canada, this was used as a plea for guilt when killing another man in the First Nations and some of the remaining tribes of Native America.
Because a lot of what goes into even in the description of the Wendigo is the sense of, well, for one thing that I found kind of cool, how the depictions of them having deer skulls as a head in some form is actually inaccurate. It's more humanistic looking in the sense of it's heavily emaciated, kind of going into where it's a guilt-laden sort of creature, because the emaciation is a depiction of their constant gluttony that's never satisfied. That's why they're also cannibals, because it goes into the idea of you've already taken advantage of your fellow man, you've killed your fellow man, and this is the curse that you're stuck with now.
Now, and the whole deer skull aspect is actually more of a, from what I learned, is more of a very southern to west kind of thing. So in the Gulf states, the Native American tribes that were forced out of the Gulf states into, let's say, Oklahoma, out of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, had moved forward, and it's actually a misinterpretation of another topa, basically, of the Native Americans. So you have the genderless, lanky, basically Native American slender man.
Yeah, pretty much,
but
with a
like,
face.
Yeah, but like it's described as an animalistic man who's lost all consciousness of humanity. Was actually mixed with another version of another thing from Native American culture, where the tribes were trying to mix together in reservations that are being forced into each other.
Oh,
so if you think about, like, if you were to take evangelical Christians and lump them in with Catholics, you're going to get some very odd things.
It's going to be a weird mix in terms of their gospels. It's kind of the same concept. It's like, we have the same kind of story. Like, this is our version of it. Oh, that's cool, but here's like a few more details that we have on our end.
And that kind of goes into the whole, description of angels in the Bible, and what we think angels look like are personifications of actual people.
Yeah, giant wheels with eyes saying, do not be afraid.
Yeah, don't be afraid. Chill.
Jesus fucking Christ.
But like, if you think about it, that's kind of the same way the Native Americans went about it, something scary and terrifying, but they were able to personify it to make it a little bit more relatable because of what it does, which is possess people and kind of guide them down a wrong path, which
exactly
I can only imagine that this, like, so we've talked about it before. We'll probably go into it when we talk about cults, but how a religion or mythos, basically, the religion of these Native American people, kind of, this is their answer to maybe like mental illness.
Yeah.
This is their definition of what causes it, because all religion is just a book of stories telling you why things happen.
Well, in some ways too, it also goes into the concept of staunch individualism and how it can be kind of detrimental to the sake of the community.
Yes.
Because in Native American culture, it's relied heavily on community. You're taking care of your tribe. You're taking care of your neighbor, your family, and really everybody that you live with and around, because that is your family, more or less. Everybody's connected. And it also kind of goes into that with the legend, in the sense of typically this creature will pick off those who are alone, usually ousted, alienated from their tribe, traveling by themselves. So it kind of breaks it down to where selfishness, in the sense of being on an island by yourself, or kind of sectioning yourself off from everybody else, can be detrimental and can cause you to engage in behavior that would be abhorrent to everybody else.
And I kind of found that fascinating about just Native Americans in general. We don't hear too much about rogue members of natives.
Very rare.
Even in Australia, the Aborigine, there are so many different tribes, they all tend to not exile one another. And I think that's kind of a rare breed kind of situation on our end, European Americans and stuff like that, who believe in exceptionalism as a rare form. And you do see that along, because of the way Europe progressed and the way Native North America and South America progressed, it's very different. So, we created feudalism. We created, basically poor man's capitalism, servitude, slavery, stuff like that. Not saying the Native Americans didn't have that, because there was a lot of infighting. Hey, let's take what we want, blah, blah, blah. Because it is part of, the saving grace of, Native Americans when moving. Is it's like you're going to be moving into someone else's territory for a minute.
That was primarily like the Cherokee would always have a lot of infighting throughout Appalachia, because of fishing and hunting grounds that were throughout the area, as well as trading posts too.
And I think that's kind of, I'm not going to say odd, but very unique of what's going on in the world around that time. Is, people are building castles, towns, people are building houses on the fucking range, basically in Europe. But over here, it's still a tribal mentality.
Very much
down
so.
To, pre-Western Roman society, which basically created the city-state with Greece and Egypt. We rarely hear stories of tribes between Northern Africa and Europe, which I find kind of fascinating because their versions of stories, you get Norse mythology, especially in Gaul, going up to where Sweden, Finland, and the Scandinavia. Yeah. But here in North America, I think it's kind of neat that they were able to create virtually their own version of the devil. Yeah,
to a degree. Even this creature itself could be like the version of the devil, something that's never satisfied, always trying to trick more people. I mean, the concept of it mimicking people's voices, whether it be loved ones or the person themselves, to try to coax them out.
And going into a little bit before, I always loved the theory of how Native Americans came to be in what is now United North America. We've all heard the land bridge. From Russia to what is Alaska, and through the Grand Teton Mountains down to the Midwest, Great Lakes area. But I find that the separation of people, mass migration, if you will. Do you think that it's inherent in like just being a human being and to creating a good and evil personification?
I feel like it is. I feel like even if there's not a religious connotation within it, I feel like mankind, humans in general, have the concept of right and wrong, good and evil, black and white mindset. It's just a matter of what is determined in our cultural aspects. Like, for example, you could take something like the samurai culture of Japan and compare it to the militaristic culture of the United States, say like the Second World War. Since they both kind of faced off, there was still that old school mindset where it's in a sense of, on the Western side, we surrender. It's not necessarily taken in a way of you've dishonored your entire country, your family, your namesake. It's you had no choice, especially in a situation where you're surrounded. Whereas in Japan, a culture like that, it could be seen as something horrible. So whereas something that is very morally gray in one area of the world could be something that's just morally in the red, where it's like, you don't fucking do that, otherwise you're not coming home.
Yeah. So, like, I see it as more of a societal ethics, a changeover, which I think it's kind of fascinating for just, Europeans when they come over and they start hearing these stories. Once talks break in and there is a translator of sorts who's like, yeah, no, we don't go that way. Why? Because the thing will take you in the woods. And that's their fucking belief. Yeah. They're like, hey, Jim went out there.
He didn't come back.
Jim again. Well, shit, Red Crow, I guess I have to believe you. Fuck. And then I do. There was a map recently I saw. It was mass disappearances from 1899 to 1592 in North America,
Christ.
and it's a map of the United States and Northern Canada. And then they displayed it over open mine shafts and caves. And
So
I'm just like,
I've seen that. Yeah, so I was like sitting there going, either something is grabbing these fucking people, or they're just finding a hole in the woods and just falling straight fucking down.
As shit.
No wonder why the life expectancy for a while was only like, I think in your mid 30s to early 40s, like 42 is at one point the longest lifespan, which is coincidentally also the meaning of life according to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Douglas Adams nailed that shit.
Nailed that shit down.
The second book is actually my favorite of all of them because the
second book is
the
really
restaurant at the end of the galaxy.
Yes. I fucking love those books. Oh my god.
We could do a retrospection on those too.
I am totally fine with that.
But we don't have a literary review yet.
We need a bulletin board at that point.
Oh god,
A
red
whiteboard.
fucking ribbon going here.
You could be like Geraldo Rivera. You can even take your mustache off and erase the shit too.
Look what I found. Nothing's in it. Fuck. But going back to the Wendigo, I think it's basically in a more Western layman's terms a demon.
Yeah,
in a way, like it is
demon of the woods.
Yeah, and like even in Skinwalker Ranch, which I love that it has such a big pull for a lot of people out west, even though it wasn't that big on that side of the country, except for a handful of Native American tribes who intermixed with other tribes from the east.
Well, you know who actually owns it now? His name is escaping me right now, but he's actually one of the billionaires that works on space technology.
Of course it is.
Oh yeah,
when it comes to conspiracy, that's what makes it fucking perfect.
Because the family that had lived there before in the early 90s, after they moved, they sold it to him, and I have to find his name again because I'll definitely run it by you, but very closed off, has only done, I think, 3 or 4 interviews over the course of him coming into public light about 20, 30 years ago. Very closed off type of individual.
Kind of like a Bob Lazar.
Very much like a Bob Lazar. He's kind of like Bob Lazar meets Elon Musk. So, billionaire philanthropist, multiple hands and multiple sources, but...
I knew the man that made the car of water. And I killed that son of a bitch.
But he's the type of guy that wouldn't say that shit.
He's like, I killed him. I fucking killed him.
He'll say that shit behind closed doors, but if there's a camera in his face, it's very short answer, very 48 laws of power type of individual.
Yeah.
Say less is more.
He kind of reminds me of I don't know if you ever watched Star Trek, but the Ferengi.
Yes, 100%. Yes, that is how he is. A little to nothing is said.
Yeah, the laws of capitalism.
You can't help but feel like a fucking idiot.
Yeah. So like some of the stories I had delved into other than Skinwalker Ranch, because I know that gets played a lot.
Oh yeah, there's a podcast and a half
I kind of
about
did a
it.
deep dive into the Native Americans who basically ran across afoul of the new laws of North America from Canada and what is the United States, and the deals they were making, because you would have this Native American kill another man, and under the laws ruled by Canada at the time, the monarchy or whatever, same with the United States, it's like, oh no, we're gonna have to kill him, we're gonna hang him, and the guy's saying, no, you don't understand, the guy I killed was possessed by a Wendigo, and it seems in my mind that would be a little bit more acceptable, considering that people burned other motherfuckers on the East Coast for being witches.
Yeah, it's Salem witch trials looking at you.
Yeah, like it seems like it's okay for like them to think witches and demons possess people,
Yeah.
and then it's like Native Americans like, no, they don't accept Christ, so they don't know what demons are.
Yeah, and that's what always got me with the Puritans and Native American interactions was like, how are you going to tell one group of people when you just burned like 9 motherfuckers at the stake and burned 8 and stoned one person? Keep in mind, like, did that and then say, oh, no, what you believe is bullshit. Like, you guys just fucking, like, somebody happened to be boiling water and it was like, that's fucking witchcraft right there. You gotta die.
Yeah. Some girl figured out solve for X, and that was the end of that.
some girl was advocating for women's rights. That's witchcraft. No, fuck that.
Yeah, that goes to the Puritans, which is basically the greatest and biggest cult of all time.
Oh,
and
dude.
even Europe was like, get the fuck away from us.
And that's what cracks me up about when people talk about the Pilgrims coming here. I'm like, they came here from religious exile because everybody else was fucking done with their shit. It was like, get on a boat. We don't care where you go. Just fucking go somewhere.
That tells you about the progressiveness of Europe. It's like, we don't even burn motherfuckers anymore. Like, Jesus Christ.
We've moved past that, all right? We either hang people or we kick them out. Get the fuck on the boat.
Man, we're not burning people. What the fuck is that? This
We
ain't
got
a
better
barbecue.
shit to do.
And like, I kind of did kind of like a very deeper dive into not only the Skinwalker Wendigo, but other versions of it. South America actually has a version
Really?
of the Wendigo. It's only a handful of similarities. And it's Central America for, let's say, Bogota.
Oh, down to Colombia, so
Down
it
to
kind of
Colombia,
goes
so-
from like the Aztecs and the Mayans down to the Incas.
So
okay.
so past the Incas, which is like the southernmost, I believe. Past Panama, past Bolivia, all this. There was a version. Is basically in Florida, what they call a skunk ape. But
Yeah, I'm
but it was
familiar.
like there was one that in South America. I can't pronounce the name because it has like 4 Z's in it.
Yeah, 4 Z's and like accent marks you've never fucking seen.
The only one I can pronounce is Quetzalcoatl.
I love that so much though, because I always struggle with that. At least
the
you're not
only
as bad
one-
as me, where I'm like Zihuatanejo, and that's not even a fucking.
The only reason I can say Quetzalcoatl is a fucking show I watched that was basically made by the people of Archer that has got 1 season and they canceled it immediately because it's so fucking offensive.
Oh shit!
And then
shit!
They talk to a Mexican guy and go, "Hey, Quetzalcoatl, what you back up off our beer?" And it's just like, what a fucking pull of a fucking statement.
Yeah, man. And the funny thing is, have you ever watched Narcos?
Yes.
You remember the end of the 2nd season where it's just showing the different like farmers, like people along the Mexican border loading up. Well, the song that's playing in the background for that scene is actually in that ancient Aztec language, if I remember right.
Yeah.
And it was a song that was called La Bruja, but they did the woman that was singing it did a rendition according to the ancient language, which I always thought was cool because you hear how different it sounds from Spanish, but there's some little similarities here and there.
Yeah, and like in South America and some of the tribes that were made contact with, they said, "Hey, yeah, there's a thing out there who's a man," and they described it as an ape. What we think of as an ape, the way they described it, and it could just be a lost in translation type thing, considering there are no apes in North and South America at all. Which it kind of goes into like the different aspects of territory, because you've never heard of a tornado in Europe, have you?
Hell no.
No, but it's weird that it happens on the northwest hemisphere of the world, and it's a fucking phenomenon for us.
It's just, but to some people too, it's even like to the point. Like I was out in Oklahoma City, and I saw little twisters just starting up randomly, and it's just normal.
That's their bag.
Yeah,
but it kind of lets me think of, when we think of. And we're kind of doing a dive on religion, basically, but that's what it is. A Wendigo is a
religious
icon.
figure.
Yeah, and I think because of all the different stuff that Native Americans probably have seen compared to the Europeans, which was mainly war, plague, and death. When you see natural phenomenon, let's say a nor'easter or a hurricane in the south or a tornado in the west or something like that. Or massive black cloud thunderstorms where North and South Carolina would be, where the Cherokee and Virginia and everything. And I kind of think about this a little bit too much probably, but what causes this and how would their religion respond to that?
Yeah.
And I can only imagine, you got a nomadic tribe heading out west, it's summertime. Now we have to move north toward the Greater Lakes where it's a little bit more mild weather, not fucking hot.
Yeah.
and then go back south. But in that transition period of like August, September is when what the Christians would call the gays are causing tornadoes, which is actually just the cold front diving deep into a high pressure. But
well, they know everything, right?
Fucking science is a lie.
What is it? Let's cut it out with the science stuff.
Yeah, just like another blow to science I saw this week was a guy posted a picture of what a sun looked like from like light years away. It turned out to be a slice of chorizo, and I'm just like,
holy shit!
Thank you.
Oh my god!
Thank you, you fucking heretic.
Oh man, how smooth is your brain?
Man, that's some moonwalking shit right there. That is fucking slick ass shit.
That is just, thoughts just slide right off. It's like a fucking egg.
So going back to like, let's say go back to like the west end of the Skinwalker. You've heard some of the stories out of Skinwalker Ranch about people being taken.
Oh yeah, animals turning up with no organs, chemical smell to them.
Yeah.
No earthly explanation as to why. It's like they got sucked out.
Yeah. That kind of reminds me of like a chupacabra a little bit.
In a way, yes.
Other than the chemical smell.
Yeah, that was the only thing that threw it off, because originally that's what the family was expecting. Because around that area, it's the southwestern United States, there's a lot of weird shit that happens constantly. And chupacabra is one of the anomalies that's explored often in that area, especially in New Mexico and Arizona, being so close to the Mexican border, because, it's where the legend originates from. But that was originally what they were thinking, that it was some kind of blood-sucking creature, until they started seeing that organs were missing out of these cattle.
Going into it, we're about halfway in, but going into it, do you believe the Wendigo exists?
I feel like to some degree, I mean, I like to keep an open mind with everything. Could it exist? Yeah, it could exist. So could Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster, even though there's been countless people that have disproven it. You never know, because it could just pop up one day and it's like, holy fucking shit, it actually is real. You know, that's kind of what I always think of. I always think that maybe anything is possible, because there's a lot of shit that happens in this world that's unexplained.
Yeah. I do not, but I do also believe in, you say it out loud, the TOPA kind of thing. Enough people say it out loud, it becomes true in a way. I do believe it was kind of an explanation for the Native Americans of, violent tendency, psychosis, whatever the DCM-5 says. But
gotta love that book.
but like, can you, we know what mental illness is. We know what some of the triggers are. We know that, it probably could be a family oriented, but could be post-traumatic stress that could cause gluttony.
According to Europe in the 18th and 19th centuries, there was nothing that a lobotomy wouldn't fix.
Yeah. Oh man, fun fact though, not far from Brad's house is Weston, West Virginia, which holds the Trans-Allegheny Asylum,
right?
Which was like the go-to spot for Dr. Friedman, the lobotomy man.
Are you serious?
And like some of the stories we were told were that dude would ride up in his white van and people would scatter.
He had that Joseph Mengele kind of vibe.
Yeah, like, hey, what's wrong with Tiffany? She reads too much. I'll fix that.
No, don't worry, I got this shit. Give me an ice pick and a ball-peen hammer. I'll get it done in no time.
And that's a whole another series of story, because the rumors of who had lobotomies and failed lobotomies is magnificent.
Oh yeah. I think also kind of going back to if it exists or not, and also providing explanations for certain events in daily life there in Native American communities. I also feel like a lot of what could get lost in translation, or even lost in our depiction and understanding of it, is all their stories for the most part are taught orally instead of written down. Whereas you have the Egyptians, the Greeks, the Romans would all write their shit down. Whereas everything with their traditions passed from generation to generation. Your mother tells you a story, you tell your kids this same story. And
I think some flourishes are probably added.
Oh yeah,
for
of
the
course.
Next generation, or hundreds of generations later.
Little sentence enhancers.
And like I think I find that kind of odd. That another odd aspect of not the Aztecs or Mayans or Incas, but like of just North American, not United States, Canada, is some Native Americans didn't write anything down.
Nope.
I understand the nomadic part of it, which would kind of hinder the need for written language in the long run, because we do get cave paintings in the Southwest. some of the caves in North Carolina, they believe they have found some writings that have probably eroded away finally, where Linville Caverns is and stuff like that.
Even in the Southwest, there's also the can't think of the name of it right now, but I believe it's either Nevada or New Mexico, the village that's cut out in the side of a cliff.
Yeah.
There's even things of that nature. So it was advanced, but it's just perplexing to find that some cultures that were that advanced didn't ever write anything down. There was no written language. It was just spoken. It was just something they knew.
And it kind of goes to another part of time erodes everything. So, so eventually we will be forgotten. And the written word or technology itself would be back into the earth from where it came. I can't wait to be used as diesel for the space aliens.
It's gonna be great to be harvested.
By the squid alien.
With the squid alien. I was kind of hoping they were gonna be the Greys, but I'll settle for the squid ones.
No, those are time travelers, and you know that. The Greys are just us fucking billions of years in the future. We're just time traveling, be like, hey, let's watch some popcorn and watch this guy fuck.
If that's as far as human evolution goes, I'm fucking disappointed. Like, all we got was just big ass heads and big eyes, and we shrunk. I mean, we get the telekinetic powers, but at what cost? We don't look fuckable anymore.
And I think another part of the Wendigo that kind of expands, which I was watching a lot of stuff about this, and they were talking about after 1530, 1540, the depiction of the Wendigo had changed into a paler creature. So when they picture the Wendigo in early stories from like 1492, old, turn of the century of 1400s to 1500s, where settlers were coming in a little bit more en masse and surviving the boat ride. They were being told, like, no, it's a Native American demon who would look like them and talk like them. So but it wasn't until basically the whites came over that the Wendigo became paler. So
figure.
So a generational tale of, hey, you see those white folks over there? They're all fucking demons.
They're all demons. Are cannibals. They will kill you and eat you.
Oh, that's what got actually that's a funny story about cannibalism in whites. Is that's what got a lot of Christians killed in by the Romans and by.
Are you serious?
It's a lost in translation thing.
Holy shit!
Because of what is the religion of Christianity during the time of being saved is you eat the body of Christ, you drink the blood of Christ, you consume your Savior.
Yeah.
And they saw that as, oh God, these guys are cannibals.
What the fuck?
We stopped doing that 2 days ago. We didn't do that anymore.
We're advanced now. We're republic.
Yeah, we're advanced now. Yeah, the Romans. Yeah, we're so fucking advanced.
Even though you guys have orgy halls, vomitoriums, but you know what? Party on, man.
Well, you see that meme. It's like when the Greeks invented the threesome, and then it's like when the Romans realized you could add a girl.
Oh my God! Hey, fuck, man. They were progressive as shit when it came to that.
But like, that's another. That just reminds me of like a lost in translation thing. It's the Wendigo could have changed just because of these new group of people have come, and even down to, which is another deep dive I went into about Native Americans, of what tribal painting is. Like some of the tribal paintings is as protections for warriors, but it wasn't just warriors; it was women. It's the marking of the face, much like the Japanese with tattoos and everything like that. It's a marking of a status symbol almost, and some of those status symbols were actually wards away Wendigos, what they thought was evil thoughts, evil things.
Was it the Japanese or the Chinese culture? Because I'm thinking about in terms of like how it would depict status as well. The height of the ponytail would also determine
that was
the status.
The Japanese. So
that's what I thought.
So the Japanese, they grew their hair out very long. They didn't believe in cutting their hair.
That's the same thing with Native Americans too.
Yeah. So you cut the hair, you cut the status.
Yeah. In The Last Samurai, that was what stood out when they were cutting one of the guys' hair.
But you can imagine at some point a genetic flaw would probably come into a child who would probably go balding.
Definitely.
And that person is probably exiled as like, oh no, that's a demon. We see that a lot in like African cultures. In the 1990s, who were still practicing some version of witchcraft. You see some children being basically exiled and starved to death because of what their version of belief in witchcraft is.
Yeah.
Which is no different from any other Western religion where we just exile motherfuckers for certain things. But
just get the fuck out.
It's just like the whole part of witchcraft, and the difference between witchcraft and being excommunicado is fucking you don't starve to death in the West because you can't go to church no more.
You're just not allowed to come here. You can still go to the restaurant across the street,
Yeah.
just don't come into this fucking church.
Yeah, but like in some of those other places, it's like no,
Get the fuck out of
it's
everything.
still community based, and
Yeah.
they may not move, but
Well, that
they
was
still
kind of
show
the-
like a tribe mentality.
Well, it was kind of the same concept where it kind of comes in. It's like the Wendigo, in a way, was a wild man, somebody just living on the fringes of society, somebody we've exiled so many years ago, but they've gone mad in the woods and they've become an animal.
I find that fascinating because when we, like, even today, in American culture, the guy on the fringe, the guy who's not part of society, who's kind of making it.
Yeah, it's on Doomsday Preppers.
Yeah, but like, but even that, that's just the caricature of what they really are. It's just like this person who can live off the land. We see that as like American exceptionalism almost. Kind of like your Davy Crockett's,
Teddy Roosevelt too.
Yeah,
the idea of frontierism.
Yeah. A frontier man, a one-man army, kind of.
Yep.
We see that as exceptionalism, but Native Americans see that as you're dumb as fuck. You're going to die out there.
Yeah, why would you not stick with the group? We have a group for a fucking reason.
And I believe that, and I totally believe that was probably part of what happened to Native Americans who kind of squandered away from the tribe and talked to those white people over there. I think like
turned into one of them is how they saw it.
But turned into a tribe meeting a tribe back in the day was on the frontier or in the woods fighting or at a trade post on some limit of treaty. Like handshake or something like that.
Of course.
But when the migration of Europeans got here, I could see that as, don't fucking do that.
Yeah, don't go near them because they're just going to lead you down the worst fucking
they're
path.
cannibals, right?
They
burn
eat people. The Romans told us about it.
But I can only imagine, you can only imagine like Salem, Virginia, with a Native American crawling up on them while they're burning people, their own people.
Oh, yeah.
And them seeing that,
That's
like,
fucking
what the fuck is wrong with
horrifying.
these people? And just like, we need to move.
Yeah, and I've thought about it. I've never really taken that into consideration. Like, let's just say there was a Native American tribe that just stumbled upon the Salem witch trials. They're seeing a guy getting stoned to death. I'm just wondering what the fuck goes through your head. You've only seen this culture for maybe like 2 weeks, right? Mm-hmm. Didn't even talk to them, just been kind of watching from a distance to understand how they work. They kind of act like you. They have homes set up. They have a society in a way.
Like I will say, the European settlers are not good at spotting these people.
Hell no. The most naive motherfuckers ever.
Even in the like 1800s, like 1820s, like there's the story of Abe Lincoln and his family. Have you heard the story of Abe Lincoln and his family and his brother being taken at the fucking wood line?
Oh, shit, yeah. They
didn't see them motherfuckers coming.
They just looked over and he was gone.
Yeah.
That's right.
And like, so like, even in the 1820s, 1830s.
It was still happening.
Like, people getting snatched the fuck up.
And white people were acting like the white people in horror movies.
Yeah.
What was that noise?
What was that noise? I don't fucking care.
Let's get the fuck out of here. No, let's go check it out.
But like, imagine like a great depiction of this is actually the Scarlet Letter.
Yes.
And
the Crucible too.
Yeah. It's just like, hey, you see that wood line over there where their property stops? And the Native Americans begin. Could you just imagine them watching, like, rocking some dude to death? And then, like, see, we told you. They're all fucking demons.
Look how fucking crazy that is, man.
Yeah.
They're killing people with rocks. We split skulls, but goddamn.
Yeah, like, I threw a tomahawk at a Mohawk Indian the other day, and I'm just like, back the fuck up. And he left.
That was a warning, but goddamn, they
Right
just
to bear arms, you know what I'm saying? Like,
they're just putting rocks on people till they fucking die.
and just imagine what kind of, like, fauna was out there. So like, I had said something to Alex and Cap. I said, the moose, the North American moose, is the last remaining megafauna of the North America.
That's very true.
Actually, probably the world actually is because it's such a large animal that does not have a place in the ecosystem. I said, but in my mind, I'm thinking, what other fucking animal probably just like bebop down the fucking forest and was probably like snatching motherfuckers. We get stories of Native Americans like the Leepchi, which is basically another version of the Wendigo.
If you've ever heard of Nantinak from Alaska, it's in this area called, oh my god, Portlock.
Yeah.
Abandoned town. It's not a town anymore. It used to be a big cannery, fishing area. Well, the Native Americans up there have something called Nantinak, which is a lot like Bigfoot, but it's like Bigfoot with supernatural powers.
Well, that's what the Wendigo is. Wendigo is not a thing. It's a supernatural belief.
Well, that kind of goes into what you were saying about people going missing into the woods, because there were instances of hunters' bodies being washed down the hills around this town. when the rain season would roll in. So guys would go missing for 2-3 weeks at a time, sometimes even a couple of months, and all of a sudden you'd see them coming down the hill. Or like another example, because it was a logging community, after they were cutting down these trees and moving further into the forest, something got fucking pissed because all the people in the town reported hearing screeches, growls, and feeling huge logs getting thrown at their homes and businesses.
Yeah, kind of like a shrieker or something like that.
Yeah, and that's kind of where it goes into the Bigfoot thing, because it to people that saw it, it was kind of like an ape, but very intelligent.
Yeah, I kind of look at the Wendigo a little bit differently from the other cryptids we'll be covering, like the Mothman, Bigfoot, the New Jersey Devil.
I love
Chupacabra.
the Jersey Devil story too.
And so like it seems as like this particular one is more religion based than anything other than why eyewitness. Because anytime I was reading about the Native Americans when they came across the Wendigo, it was always inside someone else.
Yes,
some other poor soul who got possessed.
Yep.
By the Wendigo, who probably just had PTSD or some shit and just like left.
Ate a bad mushroom.
Yeah, and that's another part of what part of psychedelics or tribal rituals probably had an effect on someone with a psychosis of some kind.
Because a lot of out west, when they would smoke peyote and ayahuasca, things of that nature, a lot of that was more of like black magic dabbling. I remember talking to a girl I was seeing that was really heavily into Native American culture, like really researched this type of stuff. And if
Smoke
you go
this peace pipe with me, there's PCP in that note.
It's gonna make you feel good. Yeah. Damn, General Custer, I didn't know you'd like to get wet.
yeah, wet with blood.
Yeah, for real. But I, like a lot of stuff with the Wendigo, it really makes me wonder if there was psychedelic trips involved, like something along the lines of shrooms, bad trip type of thing, because that's what would happen to berserkers over in Europe. A lot of the Gaulish, the different barbarian tribes.
Norsemen.
Yeah.
Let me just drink this homemade honey beer, and let me just put some psychedelics in that shit, and I'll never feel pain, and I'll be in Valhalla in no time.
I might go fucking nuts and kill my own guys, but you know what? It was worth it.
Hell yeah, it was Valhalla.
I think one interesting thing, kind of throw this into pop culture, just kind of stay on topic a little bit too. The primary antagonist for Stephen King's
Pet Sematary.
Pet Sematary, the most well-known example. The movie didn't really do it any justice. The book kind of depicted it more in the forefront. Yeah,
the newest movie does. The newest Pet Sematary kind of does.
Good.
Because you see, the Creed, the dad, he's out there with John Lithgow's character, the neighbor, and he says, "Don't look in the woods because you'll see it." And he kind of jerks and looks in the woods, and you see something moving across the timbers, and it's the Wendigo. They depict it with the deer head and everything, but it's basically the Wendigo, which I have a whole theory on Stephen King novels that Ellie Creed is actually the villain in Dr. Sleep.
Well, there's a lot of ways they're interconnected. Like one just small example is that Red in the Shawshank Redemption is a resident of Castle Rock, the same town that's from the Dead Zone, where Johnny solved the serial killer murders that were occurring there. Yeah. So it's just a lot of cool stuff.
They're all interconnected. The Dark Tower series kind of ruins it for you when you finish that series. Yeah. But they're all interconnected in a version.
Kind of going on, continuing on with that too. The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon, if you've ever heard of that book, that kind of continues off of that, but it's further south in Appalachia. It's around this area, around North Carolina, Virginia border.
He really dives out of Maine, but when he does, it's California,
North
Carolina.
Yeah, it's always the most extreme further out west or somewhere in New York City. But this was actually a lesser known book that has a Wendigo in the forefront again too. Yeah. Not quite as having a heavy hand in the sense of Pet Sematary, where he could corrupt people enough to corrupt the protagonist to bury his son and his cat and his wife that eventually did him in. That was the whole goal of the whole thing. In this book, he's more of a background character that's kind of like a fucking game master in a Dungeons and Dragons tournament, where it's kind of like girls trying to find her way back, get off the trail, and find her way back to civilization, but he's just throwing obstacles and shit at her constantly. That's
another part of it, D&D culture kind of being big again like it was in the 80s. It's kind of expanding now with the internet age. I've noticed, I've gone back and looked at, some of the editions of D&D and some of the creatures and realized some of these are European fantasy creatures. Some of these are fucking religious aspects of other cultures.
Yeah.
So like we talked about it here on Stranger Things when we did the Stranger Things, the Vecna, this, grotesque wizard, which is like a witch basically of European culture.
Yeah.
But there are other aspects of it too. The Mind Flayer, which is, depicted as a dragon, but in some parts of different editions, it's depicted as a lanky, emaciated creature that corrupts.
Kind of like the Wendigo in a way.
Yeah, and what I think is just kind of fascinating about the Wendigo is, we think of it as a real thing because it's classed as a cryptid.
Yeah,
which is very odd.
Yeah,
that has that classification, and we compare it to, like, let's say Point Pleasant's Mothman.
Yeah.
Which is a harbinger of fucking bad tidings, bad times.
Yeah, constantly.
And then you have like the Flatwoods Monster, which is aliens, but it was just maybe guys with flashlights, like,
kind of like the Dover Demon too, if you've ever heard of that.
Yes,
That's kind of like people think that was an extraterrestrial, or some people have even said that was a Wendigo too. And
I think because this one is probably the oldest one we'll probably talk about in some of our cryptid series, because that and Bigfoot have such a timeless.
Oh yeah, you can go on for days and days because there's all different things coming out about them.
But going like it kind of changed. Like I kind of see this as just an interpretation of what evil looks like for Native Americans.
Yeah, because I mean, evil has various forms. That's a very cliched saying, but it's very true. We have different depictions of evil in Western culture, in white culture as well. I mean, in Catholicism, it's the devil. In Hindu culture, it's Bahraman. Is that what it is? I'm trying to remember. What was it?
Bahamut.
Yeah, basically similar to that.
Yeah.
I can't remember the exact name. Kali. There we go. It took me a sec, but that's like a depiction of chaos and evil in that culture.
Well, that another lost in translation kind of thing is, when the Muslims were being driven out of Spain, we get what is the name of the devil in the Church of Satan is Bahamut,
Yeah.
and like that was the goat-headed demon, blah blah, and like. That kind of goes into a horned creature
with cloven
hooves and stuff like that. And it's like you're describing a Wendigo.
Yeah,
and
see,
like there's such a communication breakdown into what that is, and all it was in Spain was they were saying Muhammad, but the Spanish didn't understand that, so they created the word Bahamut. So that was the lost in translation part of it. They thought Muhammad was the devil. And
I kind of give them the benefit of the doubt because keep in mind in Spain, it's like doesn't surprise me because they speak Spanish with a lisp there. I don't know if you knew that, but they speak it with a lisp because of a king that had one.
Yeah, the Vosotros and Nosotros.
Yeah,
Spanish.
Vosotros would always piss me off.
The Habsburgs and the inbred.
That's a fun topic.
Yeah. But it seems like the lost in translation kind of fuels these stories of like ghouls and
because it starts out as kind of a Krampus type of thing where it's like you better be good or otherwise this is going to come and get you,
which I love. The Krampus is, have you noticed that all evil creatures in all religions have horns?
Every single one.
Why?
And cloven feet.
Why the fuck does it have horns?
I don't know.
I think it's probably the fact that people are being gored to death a lot of
times. I guess, yeah, probably.
Like, can you imagine what kind of deer were here before the white man came?
Fucking Christ.
Massive.
They were causing a higher body count than most of the wars.
And like, I was just like, because I think about stuff like that and what tales we grew up with as kids, some like church stories and stuff like that. Yeah. And how it probably just got miscommunicated. It's like, I love stories. So, and we'll talk about it again, but like another one like is like the story of Sodom and Gomorrah about being burned down to the ground. And the two people that showed up are described as tall, pale of skin, golden hair, which is basically the basis of angels. And I'm just like, you're describing a Viking.
Yeah, what the fuck is going on here?
Did Vikings travel south and sack two towns?
Just out of nowhere, they somehow missed the entirety of Europe.
Well, maybe, it was like it goes, but in my mind, I explained this to a teacher who taught Bible history. He told me I was basically a heretic for thinking that. I'm just like, you can't think that's plausible. A large tribe of people who probably got exiled from other Scandinavian tribes went south just to say, like, let's see what's down there.
Yeah, fuck
and made it to where Sodom and Gomorrah was being, which is an oasis in the desert,
I mean,
and sacked them.
It wouldn't surprise me, because if you have interactions between the Vikings and Native Americans in parts of Canada, Newfoundland, for a great example, and they got driven off the fucking island shortly thereafter.
The story of like Leif Erikson being the first white
to arrive here.
Yeah, the story of that. And that's another fascinating story.
Oh, dude, it really is.
We go in real detail on that, but it just seems like a lot of these stories are intertwined.
In a way, yes.
You mentioned Krampus. I would love to do a holiday series on just religious, like, because I love Krampus.
That is awesome,
I have
dude.
a giant
Hell
Krampus
yes.
tattoo on my chest.
I love the mistletoes on it.
I got on the fly.
It's good for on the fly. Good. You plan
all in
that
one
shit
sitting
out.
too. Like,
Oh, really?
Oh god, it hurt like a motherfucker.
Oh, I can imagine.
But like, it's something like, you kind of realize while talking about it, it's just like the skinwalker is described as a lanky creature with horns, the face of a dead deer. The devil is a goat-headed man. Krampus is horned. Even some of the Indian deities have horns.
Yeah, they're modeled after in some
tusks.
ways they look like satyrs too in some depictions.
Yeah, and
Where
that
it
kind of
blends.
that kind of reminds me of or Pan from Greek mythology. It's kind of like, this is a pick and choose story.
Yeah, just
like
cherry
how to
pick what you
describe-
want.
Hey, what does Satan look like?
Yeah.
Hey, you remember that Greek guy we killed? Yeah. Remember
That's
that?
exactly what he looks
That's
like.
exactly what he looks like. He looked like a furry who's like in the middle of putting his costume on.
He just got the head and the gloves on, and we got that son of a bitch
Got
before
him.
he could go further.
Snatched him. And like,
Even the Minotaur is another good example. It's a bullhead. It's just a bullhead. It kind of goes into that story of where it could have been just a man that lived on this island that scared the shit out of people, like Scooby-Doo style, that they said, oh, he's been killing all these tons of people.
And you think, that kind of goes into one last part of the Wendigo. You think they probably just created the Wendigo to keep people in the tribe?
I think so, because strength in numbers, especially when you're living that type of lifestyle, either it's nomadic or even if you are stagnant, in the case of like a lot of the tribes in the northeastern North American region, because a lot of times once you go further out west, that's where you'll see a lot of the so-called teepees, things of that nature. But if you go to the east, where you see a lot of the Iroquois and Algonquin settlements, there are long houses, there's walls surrounding there. So it's almost, in a way, very similar to how European castles were constructed. You had the giant stronghold in the center, and then a little wall at times surrounding that and the village within it.
Yeah. And I think the Wendigo kind of worked very well for some of these tribes.
Yeah.
In a larger aspect, because they're so nomadic and they didn't have time to build walls. They're building teepees and,
Of course.
shacks, basically.
Yeah.
Not like square structures like the Europeans, but more of triangular shape, that weight distribution and everything.
Oh, yeah,
the
of
triangle
course.
is the strongest shape.
Goddamn right, triangle superiority.
And as someone who's helped put up a fucking teepee, imagine putting up 15 of them motherfuckers. It's
You know
team
what?
work.
We're sleeping outside. Fuck this.
Yeah, it's like it is very unique. And we'll go into that a little bit more. We talked about it on our Rim Rocks 1 episode about how Rob, shout out to Rob Kearns, who put up his teepee, and he was telling us how everything works in the teepee and how all the air drafts up to prevent smoke from buildup. And I'm just like, that is some ingenuity, some trial and error. Probably there's
a
people
few
probably
people-
died of carbon monoxide poisoning.
That or they
when
just
realized,
burned to death.
Oh fuck, I forgot.
Oh fuck! We put the cloth a little bit too close this time. Let's try it again, but let's space it out a little bit more.
Yeah, so we're gonna close it off here. But one last thing, it's like you said, the belief that the Wendigo possibly existed. And my aspect, I just see it as a religious terminology, like a demon or an angel.
Definitely.
I would like to come back to the subject a little bit more once we've gone through a lot more of the more recent cryptids.
Yeah.
Possibly a part 2 on this series would be great, just for Skinwalker Ranch.
Definitely.
We could do a whole episode on that.
Yeah, I'd love to.
But yeah, thanks again for coming, Quinn. I'm glad to have you, and hope everybody listens. Give us some feedback on the Discord. But yeah, thank you for listening.
Always a pleasure to be here, man.
Awesome.